Hey, I'm back. This is Chandler for Melda Production, and today I want to talk to you about using the LFOs or the modulators in Melda Production's plugins to create some polymetric effects. Last week I went over using the mods and I went over lots of things with the LFOs, but somebody asked me, can you actually do this in different meters? So can I have one modulator going in like 7/8 and another one going in like 12/8? You definitely can. I'm going to show you how to do that today. First thing I'll show you is just this basic sound. I have just this super saw setup. It sounds like this. Boring, easy, etc. But what we're going to do is just add a filter on here. I'm going to use filter basic like this. I'll leave the resonance as it is. What we want to do is modulate the frequency here. I could use one of these per voice LFOs. This definitely works as well, and you can do it the exact same way I'm going to show, but I'm going to use this modulator here just because this is the same as the other modulators you're going to see in other plugins like M Convolution. Actually, normally Easy doesn't have modulators, or does it? I don't know. No, it doesn't. But the other ones like, let me see, M Vocoder, this one has it. So it's going to be the exact same for these plugins as well, so I'm going to use these. I'm going to just click Learn, and I'm going to move this frequency up, maybe a little bit to 4 or a little bit over 4 like that. There, turn it on. I play something. There you go. It's going to keep going for a while, and then it stops, and that's because the plugin is sleeping. This is just to save CPU. It'll stop the modulation when you're not using it. You can turn that off if you want. If you just want to burn your CPU cycles and keep that LFO going, you can, but I'm not going to do that. So we have this here. Right now, it's not synced to anything. It's just going by this frequency. So what we want to do is just click sync. Boom. I'm going to turn this phase to 0, and I want this MIDI retrigger here, because if I don't have it, if I play it, I want to make sure it always restarts at the beginning every time it plays. Okay. So here we have quarter notes. It sounds like this. But as I said, the count here, this will multiply whatever count number you have by the length. So now I have 1 times 1/4 is just 1/4. I have 2, 2/4, 3, 3/4, 4/4, which is 1 basically, or a measure. So here is 1/4 or a quarter note. If I set it to 4, it sounds like this. Now, if I set this here, you'll hear it sounds the same. So you can see those two lengths are the same. So if I have that at 4 quarter notes. Now, what if you want to do something else, like, let's say 5/4. I set this to 5. So now I have 5 times 1/4, which is 5/4, and that's going to give you a 5/4 time signature. Now, if you look here, in here I have some MIDI, and I didn't mean to do that. Let me zoom in again. So this is 1 bar, 2 bars, 3 bars, 4 bars. Normally this would be 1, 2, 3, 4 quarter notes, but since I have it set up here, this is going to repeat here at the 5th quarter note. So it's going to be in 5/4. So let's hear that. So you can hear it's actually going in 5/4. If I wanted to do something a little bit different, I could change that. And let's say I don't want to do 5/4, let's say 8th notes, and let's do 7/8. Okay. That same bar, it's going to repeat here, right before the start of the second bar, like this. Okay. Now hopefully you can hear that. I think maybe you understand what I'm doing. Fairly simple. But what you can do with this is, I think the best use is with the step sequencer. So if I have a step sequencer like this, now all of this is going to repeat within 7 or 8th notes like this, or in 7/8 time signature. So listen to that. It should repeat right about there. It did, but I think you're probably thinking like, hey, wait a second, that's kind of not, doesn't sound like what it should. You think of these being eighth notes, but they're not. So what we need to do is go into the step sequencer, and you see it's 8 steps inside a 7/8 bar. So we need 7 steps inside of a 7/8 bar like this. Let's just make this a little better sounding, at least to me. I'm going to change it to this. And when it starts over, let's try a little triplet thing like this. We'll look at this again, and as I said, it should start right before the start of the next bar here, like this. So as you can see, this is playing in 7/8 using this step sequencer. That's cool, but you might be thinking like, I want to do this with, more than one, meter or a time signature. What we can do here is we'll just take this, we're going to copy filter basic 1, right click and paste it. We have the same thing, and we're just going to right click it again and make sure we get the input from 1. So we're getting that. I turned this off so we're not going to hear the first one we set up at first here. I'm going to go to mod 2, just click learn, do the same thing. Move that frequency up and down, turn it on, and we'll have the LFO again. I want to do all the exact same things. Turn on the sync, turn down the phase to 0, enable the MIDI retrigger so it starts on note 1, and then we can set this to whatever we want. Let's set this, I'll set it to 1 bar here so you can find this first. So this will be a whole note. Turn on that step sequencer. We'll do the exact same thing here. I'll just leave it like that. So this will be in 8th note since we have 8 here. It's the exact same thing. I have it in 1 whole note, but this is the exact same thing as 8/8 since we have 8 steps. So let's listen to what these two sound like at the same time. Oh, to make this a little bit easier also, let's go into the mixer, right click it, choose input 1 and 2. I don't want this going out of output 2, so I'll just click steal input from output 2 here. Turn down the volume a little bit for both of them, because since we have both, it'll get loud. And turn 1 to the left, 1 to the right. So the one on our left should be playing like this in 7/8, and the one on our right will be in 4/4 like this. So let's listen to them. Okay, so there you go. You can hear like, oh wow, it is in 2 different meters, getting into some like Charles Ives stuff. But of course you can get more advanced than that. Here I use something basic at first, but let's say we'll change modulator 2 to something a bit more complicated. So before we just did quarter notes and 8th notes mostly, let's try 16th notes. And let's see, which one should we do? Should we do 9 16th notes? Nah, maybe that's not. Let's try 10, let's try 11 16th notes like this. Okay, make sure in our step sequencer we have 11 steps like this, and we'll go and we'll try to do something interesting again. Do the exact same thing. Ooh, make sure I turn that one down, and we'll do this little double trick at the end here too. Everything should be synced up, so let's hear this now. So you can get some really wild stuff depending on how you're setting these different time signatures here. And of course, you can even go into like 32nd and 64th if you want to. You probably don't need that. But you could also set this over longer tempos. So if I wanted to do, let's say 2 bars, I could do 2 bars. And if I wanted to, make sure you put that down on 1. If I wanted to do, okay, I want to do 8th notes still. So how many 8th notes are there in 2 bars? It would be 16. So if I have 16 steps, now this would be like the exact same thing. I have 8th notes again. So Might have to do a little bit of small math in there to get something like that, but it does certainly work, and you can do it over longer lengths of time scales. This will probably make it so it takes longer to resync. So if you want something that sounds kind of pseudo-random, but has kind of a pattern to it, this is a good way to do it. And of course here I'm using the step sequencer, but you can use the shapes, the LFOs or something if you want. You can use custom stuff if you prefer something there, you want to build your own shape like I showed before. You can even import your own LFO shapes, etc. So as I said, the sky's the limit with this. There's lots of interesting things you can do with this and lots of cool, interesting patterns, especially if you get into kind of Euclidean rhythms in the step sequencer. And of course, I'm doing this left and right, but you could also split this between the high end and low end. So you could have your lower notes playing one rhythmic pattern and your higher notes playing another rhythmic pattern in a completely different meter. And so this can sound really cool and interesting and kind of keep you from having boring rhythms. You know, you want to get a little bit advanced. I think this is an easy way to get some advanced sounding rhythms without really, thinking too hard. So hopefully this helps. And if it did, give me a thumbs up. If you have any questions about this, leave it down below and be sure to check out all the other plugins at meldaproduction.com. But until next time, see you.